He tossed the expired beef into the bushes casually, then walked into the elevator and pressed the 5th floor button, but the elevator suddenly stopped on the 3rd floor. He hurried to duck into the corner to avoid the woman. While she was bending down rummaging through her bag, he darted to the other side of the elevator in one swift move and slammed the close button repeatedly. The woman thought she saw a figure flash by, but the elevator was empty. She leaned forward curiously to check. Just as the woman stepped into the elevator for the last split second, the doors finally closed. It turned out this wasn't his home, just an apartment he had rented before. Since he had kept a spare key, he often snuck into the current tenant's room secretly. He skillfully turned on the computer and modified the reminder on the landlord's phone to pick up the kid at 5:30. At that moment, a shout suddenly came from outside the window. He walked slowly to the window and found the neighbor's big dog had collapsed after eating the meat he threw away, just because every time he snuck over, the neighbor's dog would bark nonstop. He had come up with this way to get rid of it. That night, because he missed the time, the landlord who failed to pick up the kid had a big fight with his wife. The woman left angrily with the kid in the car, leaving the landlord standing alone in the rain. Frustrated and angry, he stormed into the bar across the street, and at that moment, Javier was watching the scene unfold in the bar. Seeing the man suddenly walking toward him, he hurried to hide in the bathroom, pried the door open a crack and watched secretly, but after hesitating for a long time, the landlord still didn't break his promise to drink. This made Javier very disappointed, but he didn't lose heart, because this was just one part of his plan. In fact, Javier was a director at an advertising company. He drove a luxury car and lived in a mansion, leading an extremely extravagant life. But as he approached 40, he hit a midlife crisis. The company fired him, claiming his thinking was outdated. At first, Javier didn't care, thinking with his qualifications, it would be easy to find another job. But a year passed, and still without income, he fell into dire straits. To cover basic expenses, they had to move from the luxury apartment to a dark and damp old neighborhood. His son also transferred from a private school to a public one. Watching his life get worse and worse, Javier, who couldn't hold on any longer, went to ask an old classmate for help, hoping to get a position in his company. The old classmate was shocked to see him and immediately told the HR director to bring the contract. But when he took the contract and read it, he found it was actually a 3-month unpaid internship contract. He angrily questioned the director, but the director told Javier their boss thought he was just cheap labor. Furious and resentful, Javier kicked the car door several times, but then squatted down anxiously, carefully checking if the door was dented. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a spare apartment key was still under the seat. The days when he spent money like water flooded back into his mind in an instant. Unable to contain himself, he drove to the apartment building, only to find new tenants had already moved in. Unwilling, he returned home, staring at the dripping faucet in front of him, holding the key in his hand. A bold idea slowly took shape in his mind.